Welcome or welcome back to Fable's Cosy ASMR. My name is Amy, and today here we are back in Final Fantasy XIV, where I am going to be continuing my Archer's story. Now, just before this, I was sent to complete a dungeon. I set off from the city of Limsa Lominsa. So now I am back in the Black Shroud, and we are heading to complete the quest Fire in the Gloom. In the dungeon called the Tam-Tara Deepcroft. Now, I have done a few quests around the outside of the dungeon before, but today we are going to be heading inside. It is only a short run through these very lovely woodlands to our destination. I would actually like to be spending more time exploring these woods or similar zones, but I am very behind on the story. I think the quest level for Fire in the Gloom is level 16, whereas my character is currently level 26. I have really got very far ahead of the story, so that when I'm doing instant story quests like dungeons, it is forcing me down to a lower level. So my plan at the moment is to try and catch up, and that means really making my way through as many story quests as I can. We are being told here about the cultists that we are going to be fighting inside the Deepcroft. They are called the Lambs of Dalamud, I think. And we're being told here that they think everyone else but them are heretics who have to be wiped out. So we are going to return the favour. Now, I'm going to be doing this dungeon with the NPC party just to keep things moving. I found, certainly for just progressing through the story, using the NPCs works absolutely fine. I'm sure there are harder versions of dungeons that are better accomplished with players, but for cozy solo play like this, I really haven't had any problems using the NPCs. So there's our party. And our duty has commenced. My character Venom is back to wearing slightly ridiculous armour once again. I did briefly have a really nice set that came from doing some combat training, and I wore that as long as I could. But what I'm wearing now does have better stats, so I've been forced to switch to it. It's not the worst armour set I've had in the game so far, but I have to say it doesn't look very practical. And I do still have my helm with ears, which I think is fantastic. I'm hanging on to that one. Right. There is probably only one way to go, and it's not into that wall. So far, in the instanced content that I've done in Final Fantasy XIV, I found that there isn't really anywhere you can go apart from on a set path, which I suppose is largely consistent with Final Fantasy as a whole. So I expect really we are just going to be fighting our way through this dungeon. Our first objective is to destroy 4 cultist orbs. I think we could see those in the very brief opening cinematic. I have been dropped to level 19, so sadly I'm not doing as much damage as I was before I came into the dungeon. And even more annoyingly, I have skills that I have unlocked at higher level which are now unavailable to me. I suppose that does make the content fairer if you are in a group of real players rather than NPCs. You can't make the dungeon incredibly easy for yourself, and it probably means you also can't solo it. But it does mean that fighting my way through here is going to take a little bit longer than I would have liked. I am not, in general, a huge dungeon enthusiast. I have worked my way through a number of dungeons with other players in Guild Wars 2, particularly in the early days of the game when there was much less content and less to explore. But to be honest, as the game expanded and there were alternatives to dungeons for unlocking new armour, I really stepped away from them, and I haven't done any in a very long time. So I don't mind them too much if there is a story reason to complete them, as there is here. But I'm not really into raiding or very intense group events, so I'm really only likely to complete these dungeons when they're quite straightforward. Now we've come down a bit of a cul-de-sac here. I was hoping there might be something to see, but there isn't really now I've got in here. So we will continue on. I do like the design of the dungeons. This one is pleasantly eerie and dingy. The lighting is very atmospheric. I do think if you were spending a long time in here, it could get a bit repetitive, but hopefully we won't find that today. There's a really nice catacomb feel to these, I have to say. I'm not quite sure who we are fighting here. They seem to be called the Akinik, but I thought we were fighting the Lambs of Dalamud, so it doesn't seem to quite line up. Oh, there's a Dalamud priest. So I don't know who the assistants are that we're fighting our way through. Is the priest going to be more difficult? No. I was expecting more of a challenge there. Ah. But killing him has summoned a void soul counter, which is a bit tougher. And I think beyond that is one of the orbs that we're here to destroy. So we should be able to do that in a moment. I am really just spamming my skills, if I'm honest. I have various different shots that add different status effects and conditions, and if I'm honest, I don't really know what any of them do. One is a binding, which I'm assuming stops them moving. Let's open the treasure chest and destroy the orb. And I also have a skill that inflicts heavy, but I don't know what that is. I'm assuming it slows the enemy down, but that really is a complete guess. I should probably look up what they do. But really, for the type of gameplay I'm doing at the moment, it hasn't really mattered. Now, it is actually a couple of weeks since I last made a video. I didn't really intend to take a break last week, but it was just one of those instances where life definitely got in the way. We were in the last couple of weeks of the school term, which is always very busy. It's busy for family reasons, it's busy in our business, but it was also incredibly hot. The UK has been suffering through our third heat wave of the year. Now, I have to say, it hasn't been as bad where I live as in parts of the UK further south. We are in the north of England, which does make a massive difference. However, my family and I do currently live in a tiny home, a static caravan, which is of course made of metal. It has metal cladding on the outside and very little insulation, so it gets ridiculously hot in summer. Let's have a look at this tomb off to the left. So yes, quite honestly, I didn't particularly want to do much of anything in the hot weather, apart from sit outside in the shade and read. And I really didn't want to get out my laptop and subject it to the heat. It runs reasonably hot when I'm gaming. Probably not dangerously hot, not on a normal day, but it was getting up to 35 degrees C in the caravan in the afternoons, and I really didn't fancy gaming in that. So thankfully the weather has improved a lot. We are down to a very pleasant 20 or 21 degrees C outside right now. There's a bit of cloud, there's a bit of breeze, and everything just feels so much better. I am feeling a lot more energised and enthusiastic and ready to make videos again. And of course, to keep writing. I'm in a really busy writing season and will be for the next 2 or 3 months. As I have mentioned in a few videos, I am close to the end of edits on my next book, which is an epic fantasy called Dragon Flame. I have now reached the end of the developmental edits, but I do have some new chapters to add to the end of the book and probably a handful of new scenes throughout the rest. So at the moment I'm working on writing those, and I'm hoping to be done by the end of July. Really, writing this book has been a massive undertaking. It has grown and grown, I expected the first draft to be probably about 140,000 words, which was the finished length of Book 1, Shadow Dragon. But I haven't actually finished the first draft of Dragon Flame yet because of this extra content that I'm adding, and it is already approaching 170,000 words. I have been, if I'm honest, kind of castigating myself for not getting this book finished sooner. I very, very much wanted it to be done a year after the first book. But I had to step back and reevaluate that when I realised just how long it was getting. There are plenty of traditionally published authors out there who are publishing, say, a 200,000 word epic fantasy, and they're frequently only putting them out every couple of years. And that is with the support of a publishing house behind them. So I am doing all of this on my own, and I'm looking at about 18 months between books right now. So I actually think that is not too bad. I also think I have learnt a massive amount in writing and editing Dragon Flame, so I do think the process is going to speed up as I get further through the series. Now, as I was talking there, I did destroy one more of the orbs. So we are continuing down and down through the dungeon. There's not a huge variety in the enemies down here, but as I am an archer, really my role is just to stand at the back of the party and do as much damage as possible. There is definitely a very traditional RPG class system in Final Fantasy XIV, and I have found in these dungeons that the NPCs really do play their class roles very well. We have our Marauder who is tanking, and for an NPC, he does a very good job. I'm really taking very little damage in most of these encounters. The tank is really drawing the aggro. I've got these two mages doing damage. I don't know if one of them is also a healer, possibly. I suspect one is, yes. The conjurer there was casting cure, I think. They're doing it so fast that I can hardly see it, but I think someone must be healing the Marauder. So if I'm honest, I probably have the least interesting job in the party. I really just stand right at the back and spam my skills as quickly as I can to do damage. I have traditionally played a DPS character in most RPGs, and certainly going back into the days where I did do group party content and dungeons, and particularly in Guild Wars 1, where in the very early days there were no heroes or henchmen, no NPCs that you could recruit, or certainly not ones that were any use. So you had to do a lot of the story content with other players. Of course, there are always many DPS characters in every game, never enough healers, probably even fewer tanks. There is just more responsibility on those classes. But I will freely admit that I do like the easy life, so I do tend to play DPS. I have no idea what these Yazon creatures are, but they've got very interesting design. Slightly arachnid looking though, so I do apologise if you don't like spiders. It is really very difficult to find any RPG that has absolutely no spiders in. Although I have mentioned in other videos that I think the arachnophobia settings are becoming more widespread, which is a really good idea. It is such a little adjustment to the game that just makes it more accessible to players who might otherwise choose something more spider-free. Now, there are actually 2 more orbs in there, the last 2. And I cannot get through that barrier. Okay, let's continue on. There is a path ahead of us. A cultist rosary. There really is nothing approaching a puzzle in these dungeons, certainly not so far. It is very much follow the path that is laid out for you, fight everything on the way, and it's pretty straightforward what you have to do to make progress. I am very keen to continue the story in Final Fantasy XIV. I have found so far that the exploration aspect of the game is perhaps a little bit underwhelming. It hasn't grabbed me in the way that Guild Wars 2 or WoW did. I love to explore, I love to find secrets and uncover maps. That is the one really big draw for me in RPGs. So far, Final Fantasy XIV has been a little bit lacking. Let's use the rosary to get through here. But I have enjoyed the content so far. The story is probably on the better side for an MMO. And I've heard really, really good things about certain quest lines later into the game. So I am keen to continue and see where the story takes me, even if the exploration is not overly exciting. I've got another of these void soul counters to fight. Again, they take a little bit of time to wear down, but my party is very efficient and the enemies are not doing a lot of damage. I'm taking no damage at all. There we go. Let's destroy these orbs, grab the treasure. One more orb. And success. The cutscenes in the dungeons are quite satisfying. Ooh, Galvant. Ooh, we seem to have summoned Cthulhu. I did not expect that. He is Galvanth the Dominator. He says, you seem surprised I am surprised that is not the boss I was expecting at the end of this dungeon. Now, how difficult is he going to be? He is once again ignoring me. The advantage of having the very efficient tank. I'm assuming nothing is going to be too difficult in the story completion of these dungeons, honestly. There is not a lot of point in dissuading players from missing story because you make it difficult. He's probably going to summon more enemies. Oh, let's use our limit break. Did that actually work? I'm not sure. It didn't do as much damage as I'd hoped. It's a nice nod to other Final Fantasy games in the franchise though. Here are the other creatures that I was expecting. They really don't have a lot of health though. Oh look, my tank is even getting out of the AoE. Fantastic. I think most RPGs have implemented that sort of intelligence in the NPCs these days. I do remember in the very early days of Guild Wars 2 playing as a ranger that my pets would always just stand in any AoE and immediately get flattened. So they did fix that fairly quickly. I also, however, remember in the early days of Guild Wars 1, I was working my way through the story and there was a huge kerfuffle amongst the community when the enemies started to move out of AoE damage. It suddenly made characters like mine, who was an elementalist, much less effective. There we go, we have banished Cthulu. Our duty is complete. What is that face my character pulls? That's ridiculous. I don't know what emotion that is supposed to be. Right, I don't think there's anything else I need to do in here. We will grab our treasure. I think my party's just staying there. And let's make our way to the exit. Now we have to report back to Mune. I actually don't know how to say her name. She has been giving me most of the story quests up to this level. But I really don't know how to pronounce her name. We will do a little gentle run back to the city of New Gridania. Let's see, it's more or less straight north from here, so it shouldn't take too long. Seems to be night time in this map now. I think if we head back through this village where we started, and then we will go out of the northern gate and be on the right road. I could take the chocobo from here, but I think I'd rather run today. We haven't seen very much of the scenery, unfortunately, because I have been in the Tam-Tara Deepcroft, which was impressive in its own way. I did like the design there, but I do much prefer being out in the woods. We're going back and back into low level areas here. We've got level 5 enemies. We will not do the fate. It's only got a couple of minutes left. And I have gone the wrong way, haven't I? Yes. I thought I was just following the road all the way back to the city, but I've come too far east. I think there just aren't enough landmarks in some of these maps. They're very cohesive, which is nice, but I get so lost in them, I have no idea where I'm going. Let's try this road instead. This looks a bit more promising. I know there are really low-level creatures right outside the gates, so it looks like we are finally going the right way. I've seen one or two other players around. It always seems inhabited in Final Fantasy XIV. There are plenty of players, but I haven't come across many actually doing anything. They tend to be running past or more frequently just standing around. I don't know why that is. I haven't had much assistance doing fates, for example, which is a shame. I would like to do some more level appropriate events, but it would be nice to do some of them with other players because they're quite slow going on your own. Now we're back into this inn, and here is Mother Mune, if that's how you say it. It was a success, though I have no idea how she would know back here. I am a capable adventurer, thank you very much. She's saying the guild is constantly inundated with petitions, but inexperienced adventurers are getting themselves into trouble. Oh, this seems to be the rest of a party berating their healer for failing to heal another member of the party and allowing him to die. Oh, that is harsh. Oh, they are really mean. This is ample reason to never play a healer. Get rid of Ever's head, bury it, cremate it, do what the hells you like with it. I would agree with that though. Maybe don't carry around the decapitated head of an ex-party member. That's just taking it a bit far. But yes, healers have the worst time. I think probably other players and NPCs, it seems, expect a bit too much from them. And of course we are being given another task to do. That's one complete. And now we're going to take a trip to Uldar. This is pretty much what I expected. So far the story is sending me around the 3 main cities. I have done dungeon quests from 2 of them now, so that means there is 1 more to go. It's not the most interesting structure to the story, I have to admit. I know the story is trying to get new players used to the mechanics of dungeons, but doing them one after another is not thrilling, or it isn't for me. The airships are great though, even if I do seem to be the only person on them every time they leave. And here we are flying into the very rainy Uldar. Now this is supposed to be a desert city, but it is absolutely pouring down, which was unexpected. There we are getting off the ship. Now we have to go to another inn, I think they are here. I don't know where it is. The quicksand. Let's look at the map. I don't know this city very well. I've had a very brief run through it and that's all. So I can see it on the map, but I still don't exactly know how to get there. Let's go up on the lift and see if that gets us closer. Up to the Ruby Road Exchange and out into the rain. This city very much reminds me of Rabanastre from Final Fantasy XII. It's a bit less large and imposing perhaps, but the architecture is very similar. Is this the quicksand? Yes, it is. Well, that was easy to find. And here is Momodi. I am eager to get started. There's another quest complete and Momodi is waiting to brief you on your task. This is almost certainly going to be another dungeon of some description. There's a fabulous moustache. This is Papashan. Okay, looks like he has some information for me. An unfortunate development at Copperbell Mines. Giants have seized control of the place. I did say it was going to be another dungeon, and this time in a mine. So the giants are imprisoned in the mine and have been there for 300 years. Well, that's a bit unfair. They were kept as slaves for the mine. And then there was a great giant revolt and they were buried under rock. Well, I have to say I'm kind of on the giant side there. That seems a bit unfair. Ah, they have delved too deep and awoken. The giants in this case rather than a Balrog. We have to go and fight the giants in the mine. I do have reservations actually, but anyway, we better do what the quest requires. I would prefer to set the giants free, although I suppose they might not particularly like me for that either. We have to speak with Painted Mesa. Here he is, very handy. I have sort of volunteered to deal with the mess. I'm not sure if volunteered is quite the right word. The mine has been abandoned for centuries. They knew the giants were there, but they dug anyway. That didn't really tell me anything new, anyway. So, let us head to Copperbell Mines. Let's work out how to get there. What a run through the city and out to Western Thanalan. I'm going to get really lost here, I can just tell. It's a fantastically designed city. I really like Uldar. I think I would quite like to start a character off here to see more of it. I am considering trying a new character to try a completely different class. I certainly do like Archer. It doesn't take a lot of thought, but it would be nice to try something else, something completely different. So we are out here in Western Thanalan, in the rain again, and we are heading north by the look of it. I don't think I've explored any of this map yet. So we will head up the road, and actually that is where I am going to leave you. Thank you very much for joining me on this dungeon delving expedition. Please enjoy a little bit more of this scenery and the rainfall as we head our way north to our next destination. I hope you are feeling a little bit more relaxed than when you started watching this video. And I would love it if you told me down in the comments what I can look forward to in the rest of Final Fantasy XIV to come. I honestly don't mind spoilers, so please tell me anything you like that you have really enjoyed in the game. But for now, that is all from me. I will see you next time.